This is not going to make for great video content, I'd have to admit. I might even put it on Instagram after this. But I do, as I suppose most people do, you know, I've held on to some mementos from my university days. And Star 69 was a fanzine sort of idea that was published within the walls of Durham University. And you can carbon date it almost immediately simply by the fact that Mulder and Scully are on the cover of one of the issues. So this was bang smack mid-90s, height of X-Files fame and glory. And I think it's a really good image of them, actually. So basically we had sort of a little local news group set up. News groups were the main thing on the internet really then, in terms of people chatting to other people in public. And in one of these issues, they actually use sort of excerpts from news groups as a sort of like almost like a letters page, which I thought was a very clever idea. This was also a time, to my own mild amusement, because I remember this night quite clearly, I also came across this. And I don't know whether this is ever still happens, but if that's actually focusing, that is a ticket for a UCI cinema, and it's for a viewing of Star Trek's 1 to 6 in one sitting on the 4th of Feb 1995 at the Metrocentre in Newcastle. On a Saturday, time 11:30, price £15. £15 for 6 films. So that's like under £3 a film. Great time to be a student, clearly. So I mean, that's quite crazy, but I do remember that. I remember that everyone went out to eat during Star Trek 5 and came back for Star Trek 6. But I'm not sure whether we then followed up with an airing of Star Trek First Contact. I'm trying to think if did that come out in 95? It might have done, you know. I think there was a sort of, I think the idea was 1 to 6 with a warm-up, and then it was Star Trek First Contact, but I could be wrong about that. But I remember a load of us cramming ourselves into a taxi to get there from Durham. That was a good night. That was a fun night. Just sat there absorbing as much Trek as currently existed in movie form, you know, just bonkers. Just bonkers. I mean, that must have taken us it must have run for at least 9 hours, that minimum, I would imagine, for them to fit all 6 one after another. Has to be at least 9 hours. Because it was definitely dead of night when we came back. So yeah. But I know, as videos go, completely utterly random. In case you're wondering, the reason why I've got these as keepsakes is because I do appear in both of them in written form with a couple of short stories that I did, which you can, in theory, you could probably still track down on my website if you could find the old version of my website within it, and they're probably still up. 2 stories called Out of Time and Retribution, neither of which I suspect were particularly brilliant, but you know, it is what it is, isn't it? You know, you do what you know how to do at that point in time. So yeah, that was, you know, my sort of brief stint of being published in anything. Then of course I kind of switched over to self-publishing on a website when I did return to creative writing from time to time. But I guess this is now not a thing anymore. I don't know. I'd be intrigued to know if anyone does still bother with paper-based fanzines like this, because you know, back in the day, they were a thing, and the friend of mine who produced these then went on to be, you know, more professionally involved with the publishing business. So for her, it was kind of a sort of a first step on the ladder, so to speak. Whereas for me, I was just happy writing stuff, science fiction, of course. So yeah, I just thought I'd capture that for posterity, even though it'll be of no use to anyone else whatsoever. But I will be fascinated to see if anyone finds this just from the title and the sort of the subtle hints I'll put into the content. I'll see if any of the original contributors do actually reappear without me telling them they're in this video. because I do recognise some of the names immediately from this. And it'll be really interesting to see if anyone does find it. That'd be quite funny if they do. But yeah, I don't think they stretched to back covers. No, they didn't. They didn't stretch to back covers. The other funny thing about this was, I remember there's even comics in here as well. Look at that. See, proper comics and everything. It's cool. The other funny thing I do remember as well, though, is that. How many of you remember zip drives? Do you remember zip drives? They were portable storage drives. They were blue, very sort of deep blue colour, and they used to carry 100 megabits megabytes even of data on a really sort of chunky physical diskette that was virtually indestructible. And as I recall, the lady in question couldn't fit a full sort of version of this digitally onto a floppy disk. So the only other portable storage medium that could get it from one part of the system to another part of the system, possibly even from a Mac to something else, was my zip drive. So I think, as I recall, for a little while at least, I was actually technically essential to the production of this particular magazine, because it relied on my zip drive, which I happened to have randomly, to actually port the image from point A to point B to get it to where it needed to be to get printed. Just completely random. But yes, that was the sort of technology we were dealing with in the mid-90s. You know, that was a big file to be moving around. And even though we had the internet at university, the publishers probably didn't have the internet at that point. That might be why we had to do it like that, because otherwise we could have done an FTP or something, but most people wouldn't have known what FTP was. I was quite hot with my tech in those days. I kind of half knew what I was doing, so I could do some quite useful stuff for people, you know, off the back of that, but that's another story. So yeah, definitely one of my more random ones, I know, but I just wanted to capture this, so there you go. Cheers for now.